If you follow my channel, you know that I make these Tune of the Week videos where I go over tunes by different composers. And sometimes people ask me, how do you learn tunes? How do you go about learning a new tune? So I thought it would be a good idea to make a video about that. At the moment, I'm working on learning tunes by Jerome Kern. So I'm trying to learn as many tunes as possible by the same composer. So sometimes I already know the tune. Other times I might have heard the tune or know, maybe I know it a little bit. In some cases, I don't even know it at all. I haven't even heard it. Right now, I'm gonna learn for an upcoming video, the folks who live on the hill. So I'm gonna share the work process that I use to learn tunes. So let's get started, shall we? So I have my tune that I'm gonna learn. First step might be obvious, but it is to listen. I'm gonna listen to as many versions of the tune as I can. Well, maybe not as many, but I want to listen to a lot of versions so I get an idea of what the tune is about, what it sounds like, and I get it into my system. So how do I find these versions? Wikipedia is actually pretty good. It gives you notable recordings. Here I can see that a lot of, my favorites have recorded it. Diana Krall, Tony Bennett. So these are going to be vocal versions. Eric Clapton, that's a bit of a surprise, so that piques my interest. I'm gonna listen to that. Then there is this great site called Secondhand Songs where you can find cover versions of famous tunes. So here you find another great list. Sarah Vaughan, Mel Torme. So you can see that a lot of people. Bette Midler, Bing Crosby. Of course, you can also go to Spotify or whatever streaming service, but it doesn't always give you the best suggestions. I don't know how it works, the algorithms. It doesn't necessarily give you everything, but here you can tell that, ooh, Joshua Redman. So I'm guessing this is based on my listening history. I'm not sure how this works. Brad Mehldau, Oscar Peterson, Stefan Grappelli, Charlie Hayden, Peggy Lee. So when I'm reading on Wikipedia, apparently the Peggy Lee version is one of the most famous recordings of this. So I'm going to listen to that. I also want to listen to the original recording. So of course I know that the Brad Mehldau version is going to be good, but I want to wait. I want to listen to that later. I want to go back in history and listen to the earlier recordings first. So by the way, this is going to be more of a lecture kind of lesson. Usually I try not to talk too much, but here it's going to take some explanation. So if I read about the tune, it says it was introduced by Irene Dunn in the 1937 film High, Wide and Handsome, and it was recorded that year by Bing Crosby. It has become particularly associated with Peggy Lee, who sang it on her 1957 album The Man I Love. So a lot of times you can find these original movies on YouTube because they're so old. So you can actually listen to the version from the movie to get an idea of what the tune is about. So there's this young couple and the guy has just said that he wants to build a house for them, and then she responds with, well, people are gonna call us the folks who live on the hill. So it's a romantic kind of tune. So that's good to keep in mind. But is it relevant to hear this super old version? We have to remember that these tunes, I've said this in my Tune of the Week's videos a lot, of that they're not jazz tunes. These composers were not jazz composers. These are show tunes from musicals and movies that later have become jazz classics. But it's a good thing to listen to the original version as well to get a good idea of what this tune is actually about. So I suggest that you listen to the tune a lot. Keep it on repeat while you're doing the dishes or driving to work to really get that tune into your system. Step 2 is to transcribe the tune, the song. And why don't I just get a real book if it's in a real book or a lead sheet or something? I have this theory that it's better if your first introduction to the tune is through the ears rather than a visual. In my experience, you're gonna remember the tune better if you at least try to transcribe it first. It's also important to be able to do that. If you're a musician, you have to have the ability to transcribe tunes. So even though it's gonna be a lot quicker if you find a lead sheet, and I do that sometimes, guilty of that, But if I can, I try to transcribe it. So I don't mean transcribing it perfectly with all the arrangements and voicings and everything, but to at least have the first introduction to the tune with your ears. The absolute best way, in my experience, to learn a tune is to do it if somebody shows you the tune, or if it's even better, on the bandstand. One time I remember I had to play Bye Bye Blackbird, and I didn't know the tune, but I just had to figure it out as we were playing. So I always gonna remember that tune now. I've never learned it from a book. I've just learned it from playing it. There are a few tunes like that. On the Sunny Side of the Street, I don't think I've ever practiced it. I just played it on gigs. And that way you're gonna remember them better, because I don't have any scientific, data to support this. It's just my experience. So the first thing I do is to transcribe the form. So I just write out the form. So this has an A, B, C section, and the C section. Now I've been listening to the Peggy Lee version, by the way. It has, the C section is basically the same as the A section with a little extension at the end. They repeat the last phrase, but it's pretty much the same as the A. It's a little bit funny. It's a 12 bar A section, which is normal, but then it's a 6 bar B section, and then the last C section is 14 bars because of those extra 2 bars. So before I do anything else, I just write out a blank lead sheet like that. Then I start transcribing, because then I don't get stuck. If there's a chord that I can't hear what it is, it's a funny chord or something, I can just move on. I leave it. I don't have to worry. I don't get stuck. I can just keep going and enter the chords that I can hear. So now I have something like this. A sketch. That's the kind of the refrain. The folks who live on the hill. Then it transposes to the 3 chord for the B section. And then we're back. So I have the melody in my head, I have the chords, I have an idea of what the tune is about. In the Peggy Lee version, there's this interlude. Oh, I live on the hill. Goes like a Mixolydian kind of thing, I think. But that's just the arrangement of her version. It's not in the original version. So, because I've listened to other versions of the tune. So now some of you are thinking, I can't do that. I can't pick out the chords. How do you do that? Well, it's important to be able to do that. So you want to listen for the bass motion. And then pick up the chord quality, ideally, if you can do that by ear, or use your instrument. The more you do it, you're gonna get better. And if it's too hard, don't try to transcribe jazz tunes. Take a couple of months of trying to transcribe easier tunes, I mean easier harmonically, that doesn't have a lot of secondary dominants and stuff and chord extensions, maybe like pop tunes, just to try to transcribe tunes so you get better at that. I have recommended this app, but I think it's really important to be able to hear chords. So it's called Perfect Ear. I'm sure there are many apps, ear training apps, but I use this one. You pay a small fee, it's pretty inexpensive. Then you can practice chords, inversions, extensions. I have a video where I'll put a link to it, where I go through different apps that you can use for ear training. Not a lot of people watch that because people shy away from ear training, but it's important. So chord identification, for example, seventh chords, right? So then you play a chord and you see if you can hear what it is. It gives you the bass note, so bum, 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 bum. That's the major 7, right? Major 7. Let's do one more. Well, that's the easiest one to recognize. It's a sus. So if you're not super strong with transcribing tunes, I suggest that you focus on that for a while, because it's a very important skill it's a necessary skill to have, and that's what we do as musicians. We learn tunes, and when you're playing, you have to be able to kind of decode what's happening as it is happening. So if you can't recognize chords, you know, if I play a chord and you don't know what it is from listening, I think that's something you need to be able to do if you want to be a, professional jazz musician. Definitely you need to be able to do that. So it's one of those things where people know that they should work on it, but they tend not to work on it because maybe it's not as fun as practicing, Charlie Parker licks. But I think you get my point. So then, I start filling in all the chords, filling in the blanks, and if there's a chord I can't hear or some chord change that I'm not sure of, I just leave it. Because the next step is to find charts. You can, of course, just type in Google Folks Who Live on the Hill PDF, but the problem with that is there's no quality control on the internet, so you're gonna find some sketchy lead sheets for sure, or you might find good ones, depending. Problem with the internet is that anybody can put up I can write a chart that is completely wrong and put it up there and say that it's a PDF of that tune, and nobody's stopping me. The best example of that is the site Ultimate Guitar, the nightmare for guitar teachers like me, because you try to find a tune that some of your students want to play, and it's just like so wrong because people just put up transcriptions of tunes and they have no idea what they're doing, and then some comment is like, I think it should be a capo on 2nd fret. How do I find lead sheets? Well, I do look on the internet, and then I've tried to find it there are many real books. So there is actually a catalog system of all the real books, miscellaneous real book song finder, I think it's called, if you can find that. It's like a register, but it doesn't always work because there's so many different editions of real book these days. But if it's in the new real book, I know it's gonna be a good chart. They're always good. If it's in one of the classic real books, it could be good, but it could also be terrible. Even though the newer editions get better and better. But some of them, there's like a real book 2 or something, and real book 3, which are just, some of those charts are just like so bizarre. I don't know what they smoked when they made those. But I have found a few charts. This is, it doesn't even say. It was just online. Then there's something called Guy Bergeron, Videotron.ca, freescores.com. It looks pretty decent. I actually found some of these old tunes. You can find the piano sheet music from back in the day. Remember that before recordings, or even when recordings were not accessible for everybody, people bought sheet music and they gathered around the piano and played these songs. That's how people listen to these tunes, playing them. And these can be very good. But this chart here, the chords are a little bit different than what I had in this in C major. It says C over E. And B section, E minor. Here comes the extra. So I noticed that it says this, the folks who live on the hill, but I thought it was the folks who live on the hill, or even the folks who live on the hill. So I have entered the song into a Transcribe, which is the program I use for transcribing. And here you can slow down, but I don't use it to slow down because the problem here is not the speed. That's for transcribing solos. But I want to work on a section where I can't really hear. Right? There are many apps like this, I think, amazing slowdowner my students use. I've never seen it because this works great. Also, you pay a fee, but this changed my life. So I want to make sure that the melody, what the melody is Peggy Lee singing. The folks who live on the hill. So she's definitely singing that instead of. So I don't know what the original is, but here is where my own kind of taste comes in. When I write the chart, because I'm gonna write a chart, that's the beauty of jazz. I can do whatever I want, but I want to be respectful to the tune. So I'm gonna do this, or the folks who live on the hill, or the folks who live on the hill, or the folks who live on the hill. You know what I mean? Those are kind of decisions you want to be making, and maybe you want to listen to more versions to see what you can do. So that's Transcribe. That's a great program to use. So you can just highlight different sections of the tune, and you can even freeze a chord if you can't hear the specific chord and stuff like that. Okay, so now I have the lead sheets and everything. I want to start to enter everything into MuseScore. I'm gonna make my own lead sheet of this tune based on what I've listened to and the lead sheets I'm looking at, and maybe I have to do some more listening in the process. So I'm using MuseScore. You can use Finale, Sibelius, whatever you have. So first I enter the melody, and when I do that, I do it with my guitar. So that actually I can, it's a way of learning the tune because you're entering the notes. This is C, I decided C major. I decided on that the first time. I've also realized that I have to make a first and second ending because of the chord that leads into the B section. So before I enter the chords, you might want to just take a phrase and work on it over and over. You can put it on repeat. There's a repeat function in MuseScore. Right? If you watch one of my previous videos or one of my Tune of the Week videos, I'm talking about this idea of singing scale degrees as a way of really, really internalizing a melody. So I can sing 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 7, 2, 6, 1, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 7, 2, 6, 1, because I can do that in any key. And one big aspect of memorizing tunes is if you can transpose it. I don't know, A flat, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 7, 2, 6, 1. So I don't do the whole melody, I just did a small phrase. You can set the playback to swing, but because it's kind of a ballad, I prefer even eighths. Something else about this, the first chords, it's the sub 5 to the 4, right? So 1, 4, or 5, or sub 5 even of 4. I recognized that right off the bat when I was listening to the Peggy Lee, because it reminds me of another tune, Cole Porter tune, Everything I Love, that has those chords. So the more you do this transcribe tunes, you're gonna start to recognize it's pattern recognition, right? It's the same chord progression as this. You recognize it from other tunes. So after a while, you just hear what it is. But you have to start doing it to get there. But I think that idea of singing the melody with scale degrees and try to do it in different keys is really gonna help you to internalize the melody, because you need to think about what are actually the melody, how is the melody constructed. Then I enter the chords, and I also want to look at iReal Pro, if it's in here or if I have to make my own iReal Pro chart. Turns out that this tune is in here. Sometimes it's in the song list that comes with iReal Pro. Other times you can go and find it in something called the forum, where you can search for tunes that other people have transcribed and put up there, or you have to make it yourself. And again, you don't know if it's going to be any good if it's on the forum. Could be. Most of the time, if it's on the song list, it's going to be good, and this is a very good transcription. here you can do the same thing. You can loop a section just to get it memorized. Let's do the first 4 bars and see if I can remember the chords. Yeah, that last chord is funny. Sus, diminished, and this chord, C6 or A minor over C. So the fact that that chord is funny, it's gonna make it easier to remember. So a great thing about this iReal Pro is that you can just choose any key and instantly go to another key. So that's another way that you can really, I know that's gonna be really advanced for some of you, but again, a really professional jazz musician can do this. You can play this in any key. Maybe not, this tune is a little bit much perhaps, but ideally you should be able to play it in any key. There's also a function where you can make iReal Pro play in a new key, transpose it every time you play it through. So that can help you to memorize the tune, because then you have to think, wait, what is the 3rd chord? Oh, it's the 4 chord, and then it's a 5 chord sus. So there are different ways of thinking about the chords. Most of us have gone to jazz school where we learn that it's 1 major 7 and sub 5 of 4, and then 4 major 7, 5 7, and then it's a 1 major 7, a flat 3 diminished. There is another way, which is called the Nashville system. There's this book called I think it's the Nashville Fake Book or Nashville Book or Nashville Real Book. I don't have a copy here. We have a copy at work, and I use it all the time for teaching. The way they think about it, it's a little bit different, but the whole idea is when they in Nashville, when they record, they might have to change keys on moment's notice. So they have the system where it enables them to instantly go to another key. So also listening to different versions in different keys, like a female voice and a male voice, it's going to be probably different keys. That's something that's going to reinforce your, you're going to remember the tune better if you can transpose it. Another thing you can do is to just play chord tones to really memorize the chord changes. It starts over, right? So the people think that that exercise is for technique and burning arpeggios up and down. I think the whole point of that exercise is to actually know exactly what chord you're on all the time. And that to do that, you need to know the chord changes. So this tune is actually there's a lot of chords to memorize. So I can't say that I've internalized the tune perfectly yet, but I'm on my way. So I noticed that there's a version on YouTube with Stefan Grappelli, who was the violinist with Django Reinhardt. Unfortunately, we can't see Django Reinhardt play. There aren't any recordings or footage of him except one. But his violinist, Stefan Grappelli, got to live a long life, and there are many videos of him, and he's playing this tune, so I have to check that out. There I noticed the chords are different, so a lot of versions have these chords instead. The same. So C, instead of going to F, I go to diminished up to D minor. Could even go. So it seems like a lot of tunes, they have different variations on the changes. Sometimes like it's almost like there's two versions. So if I play this with my gypsy jazz group, I would probably do these chords. Because they fit that style a little bit better. There's nothing wrong with that. The tune is the melody. The chords are just kind of harmony under the melody, right? But that's also going to help me remember the tune. That might seem like it's more confusing, but it's actually, it's like, aha, it's that tune that you can go either this way or that way. So looking at different versions with completely different chord changes is going to help you really learn the tune. I know there's only that many hours in a day, so you can't really listen to every version. But I will now for sure listen to Brad Mehldau. Now I'm ready to listen to Brad Mehldau and see what he's doing with this tune. So now, with all this, I suggest that you pick a tune that you want to learn. Maybe it's a tune that you've always wanted to learn, or do like I do. Pick a composer that you like and say, I'm going to learn as many tunes as I can by the same composer. There are many reasons why that's a good idea to do. And because then you really kind of get inside the head of that composer. Or maybe it's a tune, like maybe you just like the title. I had a teacher who recorded I've Grown Accustomed to Your Face because he liked the title of that song. You know what I mean? Anything that inspires you. So that was my little lecture on how I learn tunes. I hope you got some ideas out of this. And as always, I want to thank you for your time and attention. And I shall see you next time.